Kennedy had an impact on me. I'm Roman Catholic by faith. Kennedy was the first Catholic elected president in this country. He overcame, I think, some tremendous religious discrimination in the course of that campaign. And instead of just simply overcoming that and stepping into office, I think he looked back at others that were suffering discrimination as well. And I think that's in part what pushed him to begin the efforts in the South to try to end the racial discrimination that was occurring. I think the discrimination that he himself felt during that campaign caused him to look at that through a different lens and see that others were suffering discrimination, others were being limited in their ability to reach their full potential in America, and he wanted to stop that.
Well, I'll never get over what happened, but many people in the country will never get over what happened because we just cannot believe it, even to this day, that such a thing is possible in the United States of America. I was not only saddened, but everyone in this nation was saddened. He was a nice guy. And when you met him for the first time even, that you met him, you were very impressed with the humanness of this individual. He was just such a great guy. Great guy. I have no other way of phrasing it or putting it because that's what it was. He was a great human being. He was a great person. We'll never have another like him. Never. Ever.
I believe that it was kind of an era of Camelot. I mean, he was a younger president, and I think he appealed to younger people, and obviously had a wife who was very beautiful and kind of representative of the United States and what you would think would be a first couple, and I think that influenced a lot of people and made a lot of people proud to have them as leaders of our country.
I thought he was, well, first of all, he was younger, he had more charisma, an exciting wife, and I really admired her. And he really inspired the young people in Morgantown. That was the first time I'd ever seen them all get together and work, be interested in that, you know. So I think his personality and his age and everything contributed to that.
Well, he had this very vivid personality, and his image was as a young, strong, energetic man, which wasn't really accurate, of course. I mean, he had a lot of health problems that nobody knew at the time. But the image was of JFK in his swimming trunks coming out of the ocean, or sailing, or playing with his kids. So he was our parents' generation, and our parents at that time were not old. And so it was easier to connect with him. Plus, as I said, my father was in the National Guard at the time, so the whole military and uniformed aspect I understood. John Jr., John they called him back then. He was, he was just a little boy, but he had that fascination with the uniforms and the helicopters and the flags, which I understood, even though I was 10 years older than he was. That's why that image of John Jr. saluting his father's casket at the cathedral was so devastating, because people could relate to that little boy and how much he loved it all. And really throwing perfectly correct and proper salute. It was amazing, and it was his mother who told him to do it. There was one of the priests at the funeral. He knew that was a famous picture, but he said the picture that everyone missed was all the people across the street who dissolved into tears saying, "John, John, salute." And nobody caught that picture.
To me, he was a person that was willing, maybe not just as a president, but he was willing to help people. He was out to help everyone. I know that his involvement, of course, with civil rights, and I think he was involved heavily with the Peace Corps. He was someone that was out to help people, and that's my biggest thought of it.
JFK meant kind of a vibrancy to the presidency. What little I knew about presidents prior to that is they were quote-unquote old men with old ideas, and JFK brought probably a fresh perspective. Probably as a youngster, 5 or 6 years old, you know, I didn't realize an individual of that age could be a president of the United States. I think the things that were impressionable to me based on JFK being president were he was the first Catholic president, and there was a lot of media and conversation about that, which meant things were changing in some way, shape, or form. Different individuals could be uplifted and get into positions of that nature. I think that some of his thought processes on African Americans per se at the time were more creative than other presidents had ever done, and that's primarily based on family interaction, because my family really conveyed what the president was, and just seeing them be excited about a potential change to a community of African Americans per se was interesting. Didn't understand it all, but I think that's what President Kennedy brought to the table. He brought a fresh perspective and a new look.
Well, I remember 2 or 3 things. First, I remember him distinctly saying on television, because I was watching, "We will put an astronaut on the moon and bring them back safely within 10 years. And that I could relate to. The moon was a long ways away. We all knew about Sputnik. We all knew the country was getting behind, and if we could go to the moon in the back, we would be ahead in the Cold War. And I remember him saying that. And then in 1969, less than 10 years later, my wife and I were in Rome and on traveling after I had graduated from Oxford University. We looked into a furniture store and watched a man step down on the moon. And I picked up a newspaper, which I still have framed in my office. "Man on Moon" was the headline. It was the American language newspaper in Rome. And that was just so compelling to me that a man could have that kind of vision, the country would march in that direction, and we would accomplish such a giant thing on the vision of one man. And I'm sure there were other people involved, but I remember that so distinctly.